Americans hate Donald Trump and Joe Biden, but are we going to nominate them again? I'll answer that question here on the Jonathan Lovegrove YouTube channel. Now, to look into this question, I want to react to John Stossel. He has a great video here. I don't agree with everything he says, but he makes some excellent points. So let's dive in.
Who will be our next president? Polls say it's a
dead heat between President Biden and former President Trump.
And the more accurate betting odds say a Biden-Trump rematch is probable.
He's right. Now, I'm following the Republican primary closely. I've made videos about Vivek. I've analyzed the debates. I've even interviewed Mike Pence and Asa Hutchinson. But it still looks like Donald Trump will be the nominee. On the Democratic side, Joe Biden has already announced his re-election campaign. It's beginning to gear up. So it's looking like we may have a Biden-Trump rematch. So now that we know that, let's look at these two candidates.
There's a good reason people don't like them. Trump is mean.
You're a nasty person.
That guy's got a serious weight problem.
He mocks people.
I don't remember.
He hires people, then calls them incompetent. He stiffs contractors and often doesn't pay little people who worked for him. And finally, he's just divisive.
Radical left lunatics, maniac.
Now, people have known that Trump is rude. It's part of his personality. It's part of the way he governed as president. But if we're being honest, deep down, do we want that? Is that who we want leading our country? Someone who is divisive, someone who is cutting. I say that as a conservative who agreed on many of his policies. But you hear those words. Those are not unifying. Those are not winning new voters. Those are making our nation even more divisive, driving us further and further apart. Let's keep on watching.
But Biden is divisive too. Running for office, he promised.
I will draw on the best of us, not the worst.
But now that he's president, he attacks his opponents as
full of anger, violence, hate, and division.
Now, the liberals who watch my video were probably getting excited there as I attacked Trump, but the reality is this problem is on both sides. Both sides of the political aisle have two main ways to gain votes. They can either build up their side of the aisle, or they can tear down the other side, make voters scared about the opponents. Those are the two main ways to get voters out to the polls. And what we're seeing is both sides digging in, both sides becoming more divisive to scare their voters to get them to the polls. And that's what we're seeing from both Trump and Biden. Let's keep on watching.
Both Trump and Biden lie to us. Trump lies even about unimportant things like the crowd at his inauguration, the ratings of his TV show, even about winning a non-existent Man of the Year award. And of course, he lies about big things.
We won this election, and we won it by a landslide.
Let's be honest. Trump knows he did not win the election by a landslide. Trump may think the election was stolen. He may truly believe that. But even so, he should know that our elections are decided by narrow margins. Both 2020 and 2016 were very close elections. There was no landslide in either direction. Trump knows this. Let's continue.
This makes Jim Crow look like Jim Eagle.
But Biden's deceitful too. When Georgia said voters should show an ID, Biden said,
This is Jim Crow on steroids.
He kept repeating that.
Jim Crow 2.0.
But that's just not fair. Jim Crow stopped black people from voting. After Georgia's law passed, 0% of black voters in Georgia said they had a poor voting experience.
Earlier, I mentioned how politicians will demonize the other side. That's just what you saw Biden doing, talking about those extreme MAGA Republicans, talking about the voting legislation in Georgia. He's demonizing the legislation. He's demonizing the other side to encourage voters to get to the polls. It's deceitful and it's wrong.
Maybe I shouldn't call Biden's lies lies.
But we're going to win and we're going to help. We have plans to build a railroad from the Pacific all the way across the Indian Ocean.
A railroad across an ocean? Maybe Biden isn't lying. Maybe he's just confused. But that's disturbing too.
His age, 80 years old, will certainly be a factor voters will have to take into account.
He often shuffles when he walks, and aides worry he will trip on a wire. He stumbles over words during public events.
Donald Trump is 77 years old, and Joe Biden is 80 years old. We have to address the age problem. This is not a partisan problem. Many of these problems in politics aren't partisan, and this is one of them. We've seen Mitch McConnell really struggling at these two incidents. We've seen our politicians aging in every branch of government. The question is, are we going to do anything? At the end of the day, it comes down to the voters. In primaries, who are we nominating? Then in general elections, who are we voting for? But that means we don't need 80-year-olds. This is a problem at this national level, and it's a problem all the way down ballot. We just have to start voting smart.
Give me a break. I'm used to disagreeing with president's policies, but our most likely choices are just embarrassing.
Sadly, he's right. I'm a conservative. I'm principled. I know what I believe. And I'm ready to ditch Trump, and I'm ready to ditch Biden. It's time for us to move past. We don't need a 2020 rematch. We can elect better, more youthful, experienced politicians. We can do better. We just have to go and vote. And that's why I encourage you to get involved in the primaries. This is our chance to make an impact and to make a difference. Thank you for watching. Before you leave, check out this video about Vivek Ramaswamy, and make sure to subscribe before you go.